Hello and welcome to a new episode of EU Decoded, the podcast by the EPP Group in the European Parliament. And the last week of April brought another plenary session in Strasbourg. And this one focused heavily on calling for new rules to protect children online. At the initiative of the EPP Group, the European Parliament debated and voted on a resolution calling for tougher EU laws, real accountability and zero tolerance for cyberbullying and abuse. Millions of children and vulnerable people experience cyberbullying, with 1 in 6 adolescents in the EU reporting that they have been victims. Yet, online abuse is still not treated with the seriousness it deserves. The EPP Group is therefore calling for cyberbullying to become a criminal offence at EU level. MEP Thomas Tobe explains why.
I think it is important to understand that we have an epidemic of cyberbullying, and in EPP's view, we're not doing enough to protect our children and young people. Therefore, we are calling for stronger action. That means, of course, in the legislation, but I would say also that we need to have accountability for the perpetrators. We should have zero tolerance when it comes to cyberbullying and online abuse.
In 2018, Nicole Coco Fox took her own life after years of relentless bullying. Since then, her mother Jackie has been campaigning for stronger rules and succeeded in getting Coco's law adopted in Ireland.
We want to look into criminal law. We want to look at the possible harmonization on the current rules and legislation that we have in member states. We want to look at minimum rules across Europe, and also that we could have a common definition of cyberbullying. To put it more direct, we would like to see Coco's law at European level. We will now start this work together with the other political groups.
Another key element of the resolution focuses on child sexual abuse material. At the moment, the European Union doesn't have a legal framework allowing platforms to voluntarily detect and report this content. And that is unacceptable, said MEP Thomas Tobe.
We had a very unfortunate vote, I would say, in plenary. That means that we now have a legal gap when it comes to the current rules, and
which is terrifying.
This is terrifying, and to be honest, I mean, this is basically, if we don't do something, we will create a free haven of Europe for pedophiles, and this is not acceptable. So I do hope that if we can build some trust now between the political groups, that we take this initiative.
It was also a significant week for the EU's budget. Parliament adopted its position for the upcoming negotiations on the Multi-Annual Financial Framework, or MFF. MEPs passed a 10% increase to the Commission's proposal. Siegfried Muresan, co-author of the report, says this is needed to fund traditional priorities such as agriculture and cohesion, as well as new challenges.
We have to do more in the next years. We want to do more to protect citizens. We have to do more for security, defense, and also for competitiveness, to strengthen our economy, to make it fit for artificial intelligence, for the digital era. And we cannot do more with less. The proposal of the European Parliament is to allocate 10% more for Europe in the next years as of compared to the proposal of the European Commission.
To make this increase possible, lawmakers will need to look at new sources of funding.
We don't want to cut the budget. Member states cannot pay much more into the EU budget. This is why the right thing is to introduce own resources of the European Union, which make the budget more transparent, more predictable, more European. We as a European Parliament propose 3 sources of revenue. Firstly, a digital tax. Secondly, an own resource based on online gaming and gambling. And thirdly, an own resource based on profits made with crypto transactions. These 3 benefit a lot from Europe. They benefit a lot from our single market. They should also contribute a bit.
These new EU own resources are crucial to avoid placing an additional financial burden on member states, while also ensuring that Europe does not fall behind economically.
In order to be able to continue to fund SMEs and researchers, our security, our competitiveness and farmers, we need these own resources.
On the geopolitical front, the situation in the Middle East is disrupting global fuel supplies, and Europe is not immune. The immediate priority is to ensure a reliable supply of jet fuel across the EU, along with stronger coordination to protect connectivity and competitiveness.
Pero sí queremos una unión más segura y más soberana energéticamente. Necesitamos más interconexiones, más nuclear.
If Europe wants a more secure and energy sovereign union, says MEP Dolores Montserrat, it needs more interconnections, more nuclear power, and more large-scale energy storage. For the EPP Group, decarbonising the transport sector is essential. This requires a technology-neutral approach, a smart mix of electrification and sustainably produced fuels. Combined with stable supply chains, stronger domestic energy production, lower energy prices, and fewer regulatory barriers, this can put Europe's transport sector on the right track. Parliament also sent a strong message this week on rape legislation across Europe, calling for a common EU standard. Today, laws still vary widely, and in some countries, victims must prove violence or threat for an act to be recognised as rape. And this legal fragmentation creates uncertainty, weakens enforcement, and leaves victims without the same level of protection across Europe.
Eines muss dabei von Anfang an klar sein. Sexuelle Handlungen ohne freiwillige Einwilligung müssen strafbar sein.
As MEP Verena Mertens stressed, sexual acts without consent must be punishable by law. Lack of resistance is not consent. The EPP Group is calling for clear EU-wide rules based on consent because, as MEP Maria Walsh put it, only yes means yes.
Across our European Union, we still see legal frameworks in which, if there is no physical force, threat or coercion, the act may not be recognised as rape. We all know only yes means yes. Anything else is not consent. Defining rape in EU law on the basis of consent is long overdue. We now have a chance to correct the gap that was not delivered on the Directive of Violence Against Women.
And beyond justice within Europe, the question of accountability also extends beyond its borders. The EPP Group is calling for Russia to be held accountable and to pay for the damage caused by its war in Ukraine.
Powstała specjalna grupa, która będzie pilnować, by właśnie środkami rosyjskimi.
As MEP Andrzej Halicki explains, the EPP Group asked for the European Parliament's consent for the EU to join the International Claims Commission for Ukraine, which is set to be established by the Council of Europe in May. The new independent international body will review and decide on claims for compensation covering damage, loss or injury caused by Russia in or against Ukraine. Well, amid the turbulent global reality we witness every day, we end this episode on a positive note. Andrei Potsobut, journalist, historian, human rights defender and outspoken critic of the Lukashenko regime, is finally free. A laureate of the 2025 Sakharov Prize, his courage has become a symbol of the fight for freedom of expression and human dignity in Belarus. For years, the EPP Group stood firmly behind calls for his release, and today it's a celebration of this long-awaited moment together with all those who never stopped supporting him. And that's it for this episode of EU Decoded. Follow the EPP Group on social media for more updates, and thank you for listening. Until next time, goodbye.